Hello and welcome back to Coast FC, the Canadian soccer podcast focused on all things CPL, Canadian Championship, and more. My name is Felipe and Mike.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And today we are talking CANCHAMP. Finally, we have some time to be able to talk about some Canadian Championship action. And boy, was there some action in this second leg of the quarterfinal. I feel like we picked the perfect time to really dedicate an episode to the CANCHAMP. And a lot to talk about. We have now 4 semifinalists that are going to be facing each other in August and September. We'll get into who they are and how they got there after we remind you to follow us on all of our socials at Coast FC, as well as finding us on YouTube under the same name to see the visual side of the podcast. But the quarterfinals, Mike, started off with a bang in the first matchup. A 7-goal thriller between York United and Atletico Ottawa. 3-4 falling in favor of the capital club, Atletico Ottawa, who won on aggregate 6-4, 10 goals across two legs, and 7 of them in one. Talk about an end-to-end game.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane the way it started off, and I mean, throwing the red card in the first half as well, isn't it? It's absolute chaos, and the best thing about it, like for a neutral, was it took them to like nearly the 84th minute to get it, like to actually get them separated. Like York, even with 10 men after 26 minutes, just still competed like against like such a top CPL side.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And like you mentioned, we saw everything. We saw some banging goals, some mistakes, a red card. There was everything in this match. So let's dive into it. Like I mentioned, 7 goals, 4 of them in the first half, 3 of them in the second half. We're not going to go into every single one necessarily, but we're going to talk about, a couple of big moments. So Altobelli, who else for York United, started us off with a deft little chip over the top, a fantastic ball in behind from Kembo Kibato as well, who in the last couple of weeks has really been coming into his own as like an effective midfielder for York United. And I think that, one of the parts that really is something that makes me happy is that he's coming in having, not really being given a chance at Vancouver FC, given this lifeline to go to York, and now is making good on it with his opportunity. But yeah, a really nice goal to start us off, and it looked like, it was York was going to be able to get back into this game, but then they kind of fell on their own sword a bit, and specifically Elijah Adekugbe had a horrible sequence of events, being caught out in his own box, dallying on the ball. Sam Salter is able to capitalize to equalize, and then in the 26th minute, like you mentioned, he gets spun by Salter, and he decides to bring the man down. It is pretty clear a dog. So there are some complaints, but I can't really see any other way. And just like that, this after being 1-0 up, they're 1-1. They're behind on aggregate and down to 10 men. And at that point, you must be thinking, oh, God, this is where Ottawa are going to really sink their teeth in and punish.
Yeah, it looks bleak from that point. You're looking at it thinking, well, Ottawa are just going to cruise to a victory there. Like they can make it so difficult for teams when they've got 11 men, let alone 10. And the difficulties that sort of Rodriguez were causing that defense throughout, and you take one away, you just thought they'd push on and just take full advantage of it, because they've not exactly been kind to opponents in this season. They've just gone for to get those goals, get early goals as much as they can, and just put games to bed early, and just then manage it for the rest of the match.
Yeah. And it did kind of start that way when Ottawa got underway. A little bit of a crazy sequence happened in the third, because York did respond quite well to going down to 10 men, and they came so close to scoring. the go ahead goal to put them back level on aggregate after I think it was Ferrazzo got sent in and it was a smart save from the Ottawa keeper. But then immediately after that chance, Ottawa went up the other way and got on, I think, like a 3v2 overload. And Sam Salter, after Rodriguez shot, got the rebound. And just like that, the game was turned on his head and Ottawa got the second.
Yeah, so it just was really good play. You thought he'd slip him in first. Rodriguez takes the shot and the lucky rebound sort of easily puts away. But it shows a lot about what York are about now, that they're not easily sort of bullied out of games, and they've got a lot of resolve about them, and they just kept on going. It's really good to see. And obviously Altobelli gets a second, and Ferrin on there. This front three with Adonijah Reid is looking really good, and it's two teams where you've got a striker, you've got a centre forward that's going to score goals, and how important that is to teams around the league. Like how they must be looking at these guys, just especially from the bottom end of the table, looking up, thinking, "Oh, we could have only got one of these guys."
Yeah, no, genuinely, and it's like you mentioned, the resolve from York, like to go a man down, being down 2-1, you have to score twice, be level, and they actually go on and do that. And they're able to push through, and it's that kind of mentality that I think is one of the most impressive things about York United. They're playing well, and we talked early in the season about how they can play well, but they don't really get results across the line because of mistakes. But it seems like even though there were mistakes in this match, and in the end it was a mistake that cost them the ability to go to spot kicks, it still felt like this was a more mature performance from York United, and to rally back and get 2 goals despite being a man down, like that's something that I think Mauro Eustáquio will be very, very proud of his team in the way that they responded to this adversity that they had to go to. But like I mentioned, Ottawa did capitalize on another mistake. The young goalkeeper Pavetta came out with a flying header that wasn't maybe the best decision. Then a looped ball, and that when it was going into the net gets cleared off the line, but only so far as Sam Salter takes it first time. I mean, a player of his quality, on his form that he's in, he's with so much confidence right now. He's always gonna, take those opportunities and seize it with both hands, and that's exactly what he did. And then Sissoko got one just to put the cherry on top in added time with a rifle into the net. And despite York's valiant effort, Ottawa came away with the win in insane fashion, 4-3. What a game!
Yeah, absolute crazy game, and it's tough on Pavella because it's one of those difficult ones where he's rushing out, and it can be quite hard to judge where you're going to connect. But when he chooses to go ahead, you've got to throw your body into it and just head it out off the pitch. It's just a bit too caught in his own mind. But he had despite conceding 4 goals and made some big saves in that game, kept them in it. So I think it's been a good signing. I know Eustáquio said he knew him from his youth days, was keen to get him back in the squad, and talk about that resolve. Although he said at the beginning of the season, we just don't know what's going to happen with this team because this is the first season with him. He was making lots of changes to the roster, and I think we're starting to see what they wanted at the beginning of the year. This is what they've been working towards, and despite this being a defeat and the unfortunate red card, the quality of York at the moment is very much what we're seeing as Eustáquio's plan, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, like for Eustáquio, this is his first season fully in charge. He got given a lot of tools to work with. A lot of people, we talked about how York looked around the CPL, found some maybe underappreciated gems, brought them all in, and you're starting to really see how they're clicking and how they're working. And the best part is that they're getting the best out of them. Like you mentioned, Adonijah Reid has been really, really, really good for them lately. his work rate, his ability to drive forward. The same can be said for Theron. He's starting to find a little bit more form now. He's starting to understand his role a little bit better. And like I mentioned, even Kembo Kabato, how he's being impactful. So the fact that he's being able to turn these kind of maybe forgotten CPL players that have quality about them into a proper, team of CPL quality. I think that's one of the best things that he's been able to do for York since coming in. But pivoting now to Ottawa, they got the result in the end. It was thanks to a couple of mistakes. I mean, from York United. I mean, the red card obviously was a huge turning point for them. But I feel like this was the first game where we really saw the young defense that they had get exposed in a match, especially 10 men down. The 2 goals that they scored, York, after going 10 men down, were relatively like pedestrian goals to concede for Ottawa. It was they just didn't react quick enough, especially the second goal, the ball over top. Personally, I feel like you have to do a little bit better there. Again, it's a young back line. They have been surpassing expectations in
definitely.
performances that they've had. But this is those games where you look at them and there's where you realize these guys are like 20, 21 years old.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you've got a man advantage and they take the foot off the gas and get a bit naive and think, like they're going to back off. The game's ours, and you'll go for it. Yeah, it's just clear side of just little lack of professionalism and experience in it, but it's something that they'll no doubt learn from. And there'll be a lot of talk with the coaching staff about sort of mentality during games when things like this happens going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, whenever Amir Didic comes back in, I don't know exactly what the timeline is. Hopefully he can get back, before both legs of the competition against the semifinals. Because I feel like him coming back in and kind of giving a little bit of that experience as well as his incredible quality to the young defensive line will be a massive boost for them in their hopes to reach the final of the Canadian Championship. But that was the crazy first game. The second game that we got wasn't as necessarily dramatic within the 90 minutes, but it left the drama for afterwards when we got the penalty shootout. And we got the penalties because Vancouver FC and Cavalry FC finished on another 1-1 draw, making it 2-2 on aggregate. But it was Vancouver FC at Atco Field in Calgary defying all odds and winning 5-4 on penalties. I mean, it's a fantastic result for Vancouver FC, who have had a very unremarkable season outside of the Canadian Championship. Arguably, and I think definitely in my eyes, the biggest result of their short history so far to be able to go to the semifinals of the Canadian Championship. Not many CPL teams have made it that far, so it's a huge testament to the club and what they're doing right now that they're able to achieve this. It does kind of seem like if they were only able to make the playoffs, they actually might be a decent side, but it seems like in the league format they have a little bit of struggle.
Yeah, knowing that this one game will mean all or nothing seems to get stir a little bit up in that inside of Vancouver, doesn't it? Like knowing that this could be the last match actually got them ticking, and I guess they're getting a little bit. I mean, it's good getting Mosquito back as well, though, isn't it? Getting some of these players back that are going to be sort of very important for like how they're going to play and leading. You've got players in there who've got experience but haven't really been leading the team. It looks like they've got a player back there that can do that for them.
Yeah, and that's what they got. I mean, Nicholas Mosquito, when he has played for them, he's shown why. You know, they were waiting a while for him to come and make that impact, and he's still showing the quality that he had when he played for the Whitecaps, 8-9 years ago. And despite being older in age, he's still able to light it up in the CPL, which is exactly definitely what they were waiting for. And he got his opportunity to do that once again today, because after a strong Cavalry start where it looked like it was going to be business as usual for the home side. Vancouver FC got a penalty against the run of play, thanks to one of their most, I would say, dangerous player all season, consistently being Elijah Ba or Tierno Ba, whichever way you want to say it. And he was brought down inside the box, upset Nicolas Mesquita, and dispatched his penalty beautifully. And just like that, Vancouver FC were in the lead at Atco Field. And it kind of felt like, for a team that is not used to being in the lead very much, they took it on quite well. Cavalry didn't really respond all that strongly throughout the rest of the half. Really kind of felt like they were locked between the two, and I think that's exactly what Vancouver wanted. I did find that this performance was much more balanced from Vancouver, where they didn't overcommit in the attack. They didn't sit back too deep in the defense and allow Cavalry to kind of dominate too hard in their half of the pitch. It just felt like it was like a really solid, strong performance from Vancouver, and it was so unfortunate that in the second half they conceded in the way that they did. Because let's be honest, Mike, that was the flukiest equalizer I think either of us have ever seen. When Mihail Gerasimenkov hit a wayward shot, it was going nowhere near the goal. Hits off the down, injured, and facing away Aidan O'Connor, hits off his leg, bounces up and into the back of the net, beating Callum Irving. I mean, what can you say about such a goal?
Yeah, it's not winning the Puskas Award, is it?
Nowhere near.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when that happened, you thought like Vancouver will play quite well. And then that happened, you go, yeah, it's going back to great. Like it's going back. It's going to fall apart. And it seems like they're doomed to it almost. Like even when they're doing quite well, something goes wrong. And credit to them, they didn't let it affect them, and they ended up going through, keeping it at 1-1 and going through on pens. But just the way they've played for a lot of this season, you just thought, okay, well, there you go, Cavalry will get back all from something stupid.
it did kind of feel, as ridiculous as it was, it did kind of feel par for the course for Vancouver FC, and just the luck and the form that they have been on. And I just remember looking at Callum Irving's face when that ball went in, just the incredulousness on his face, that's how he finally got scored on. Because I mean, before then, both sides had some big chances. Kanija Elva had a huge chance, pretty much an open header right around the 6-yard box and missed it. Same thing, Mateo Campagna on the other side off a free kick had a really big chance and put it wide. So it felt like there were more goals in this game. I just didn't see it happening in this fashion, in the way that they equalized. But like you mentioned afterwards, Vancouver FC held firm. I really got to give credit to Afshin and the way that he kept his team focused and organized. Outside of that fluky goal, they really didn't put a foot wrong, and definitely their strongest performance all season. And the fact that there weren't that many, highlights throughout the match kind of shows that Vancouver just went, toe to toe with Cavalry and kept it dead even between the two. And that's why I had to go to penalties. And the penalties, again, it's, some people say it's more skill than luck. Others say it's more luck than skill. Either way, you got to step up and you got to take it. And Cavalry did not start off strong in that penalty shootout. Tobias Warchowski, who I think if you had to bet on someone putting their penalty away between both teams, he would probably be high up on your list, with a rare miss, putting it wide of the net, not even hitting the target, trying to be, I guess, a little bit too perfect in his penalty shots. And then Vancouver had the advantage, kept it all the way until the very end, when Thomas Powell, unfortunately hit the post, giving Cavalry the way back. I wanted to also talk about, though, Batista, the Brazilian center midfielder. He hasn't been around very much. He hasn't featured all that much, but he's already making a name for himself in a bit of infamy with some of the rival fans. took a long time to take his penalty. Took about 4 or 5 seconds just breathing, then had a weird stuttered lineup, a run up, and did well to put his penalty away, and then started to cup his ears up to and just putting it to the away fans, and got a bunch of boos from it, and just a little bit of a little bit of kind of the bite that we like to see sometimes, the banter between players and fans. But in the end, the shootout was decided by a former Vancouver FC player and current Cavalry FC player, a player that we both like a lot, player that came back from injury. Unfortunately for him, day was a day to forget, because it was his penalty that was saved by Callum Irving in the in the penalty shootouts, and it was a good pen. I don't even think it was a bad pen. It was high, it was to a side. It was just a really, really great save.
Yeah, good save
from Irving, and then you saw him collapse to his knees, put his head in his lap, and Irving run away in celebration to celebrate with his teammates, and it was a roller coaster, I think, of a penalty shootout. And I gotta say, I'm really happy for Vancouver FC. I mean, they technically still don't have a win at Atco Field because it will go down as a draw. But it's still a victory in my eyes against one of the toughest teams in the league. And you really get to see that, hey, maybe this team does have some potential on their day.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting if Mosquito stays fit, how we can see this team progressing, see if they can be a slightly more consistent side and have a bit more of a game plan on the pitch, a bit more. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's a little bit worrying about Cavalry at the moment. I mean, last 6 games, they've only scored more than 1 goal once. Sorry. Just not finding the back of the net. And then we sort of give them a pass quite a lot, because the Cavalry, they won the league last year. They didn't score that many goals at times, but when it's consistently a pattern, at times it's going to get a little bit concerning, especially with other sides of improving. So it's not just them and Forge going for a title. You've got Ottawa now, you've got Halifax. You're going to come up against a difficult game against York. And I think Tommy Wilden Jr. won't be quite as comfortable as he was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And speaking on Cavalry, that was the 3rd time that they've lost on penalties in this competition. And they haven't reached the semifinals of the Canadian Championship since the inaugural CPL year, since 2019, when they were the first CPL team to do so. So as strong as Cavalry have been in the league in the last few years, Canadian Championship still seems to be one of the things that eludes them. And I'm sure, given the fact that they faced Vancouver FC, who are one of the more easy opponents to face in the quarterfinals, they'll be sorely disappointed that they didn't move on and reach a second semifinal in their history. But they'll probably look to bounce back strong. And I think their next match is once again against Vancouver FC. So don't be surprised if they don't enact a little bit of vengeance on them in the match to come. But now let's talk about the 2 legs from Wednesday, where we featured 2 MLS clubs. Starting off with Forge FC against CF Montreal. That game ended 2-2 on the night and 3-2 in favor of Forge FC. That's right, Forge FC once again eliminating CF Montreal from the Canadian Championship, this time doing so and reaching the semi-final. And it was a huge, huge moment for the league to prove once again that on their day, they can go toe-to-toe with some of the MLS clubs. I think if there's any team in the CPL that is capable of doing that, it definitely is Forge FC. And the fact that they've done it back-to-back years really goes to show the growth that Forge have had. Also a little bit the decline that CF Montreal.
It's got to be said, hasn't it?
I don't want to harper on too much on CF Montreal, because everyone already knows how bad it is for them. right now the worst team in MLS and losing to a CPL side. I mean, I don't know if you can hit a further rock bottom for them right now. So I'm not going to, pile it on to them. I'd rather talk about Forge and everything that went well for them because, in the first half, we saw a lot of action, even if we didn't see that many goals. It felt like both keepers were quite busy in that first half. Both teams had a bunch of chances. It kind of felt like when you had Forge in the counterattacking scenarios, they looked dangerous. I really did like that. I think Bobby Smirniotis was clever and a bit pragmatic, understanding that Montreal, they're supposed to be a better side. They're at home. They're going to want to dictate play. Let's let them. I'm confident in my defense. I'm confident that we can, handle it. And then we'll wait for those chances to break because we got fast players on the break. That's what they did. And it was very effective. They defended really well. Coilat had to get involved a few times. They got a little lucky with a post off a free kick.
Oh, that was, yeah. So he made some incredible saves. That one was very unorthodox.
Yeah, but hey, didn't cross the line. That's all that matters in the end for him. But they went into halftime level, and it definitely felt like Forge, well, they might have not been in the driver's seat for the match. Felt like they were in the driver's seat for the tie. They had the advantage. Montreal weren't really doing that effective of a job of breaking them down. So it kind of felt like, okay, maybe this, depending on what happens the second half, Forge might be able to go on and get this done and grind out the results. And the fact that they were able to do that for the first 45 in the way that they did, playing in a kind of very unforged like way, is I think a testament to the way that Bobby's able to adapt to different situations.
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, really, really great to see. I think it just shows, like, Montreal, the MLS side, bigger budget, but none of those players are playing with any confidence. Whereas Forge went into that absolutely full of confidence as usual. Got themselves organised. They're a good, strong unit as a team. Like they're a team. It's not like a few individuals out there that are doing everything. They all work for each other. So it really showed the differences you get with the mentalities of the two sides as they came against each other.
Yeah, and it looked to be a very good, solid kind of chess match game in the second half.
What we saw of it.
What we saw of it, because it got interrupted by a massive blackout. A massive blackout that knocked out all streaming of it. The lights went off and everything. The game had to be paused because not only was the stadium lights on, but I was reading that the whole kind of like district of the city, that whole area, that whole neighborhood just got completely just wiped out of energy. And so there was a delay, and the whole time that the delay was going on, I was en route to BC Place to watch the Vancouver Valour game. And I was just thinking, oh God, please don't let this be the reason why Forge, lose this game and this tie because of this break in the middle. Because obviously it allows Montreal to regroup. It kind of stops the momentum that Forge might have been having in that moment. And yeah, in the end, my fears came true because even though we didn't see it, Montreal did end up scoring very shortly after the restart, and through Prince Owusu. I would say talk about the goal, but like I mentioned, we didn't see it, and I can tell you right now, One Soccer were not very happy that they were not able to broadcast that goal. Apparently, they were still kind of like booting up their trucks. And it seemed like Canada Soccer didn't really care. Started the game, Prince Owusu scored, and the higher ups at One Soccer were
a lost goal.
Very down in history with that, and kind of made their displeasure known on socials and on the broadcast. So they weren't really hiding their disdain for the situation. But nevertheless, the goal went in, and it was a tie affair. And then the onus, the kind of focus, went back onto Forge. Now it was okay. You conceded a goal. It was a very bad situation. Having the broadcast or the lights go out and everything, having that weird break. But now, how do you respond? And they responded in the most Forge way possible. They were not phased. They kept pushing. I actually think after the goal went in, they started to take a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more kind of initiative on the ball and started to actually bring it to Montreal. I think there was a solid like 10 or 12-minute period where the ball was in Montreal's half, which we didn't see basically at all in the first half. And it was in that kind of period where we saw, these 2 goals go in. But I'm so happy that they scored those 2 goals because I was thinking about, if Montreal went on to win this, the conspiracy theories that would have popped up from CPL fans about the blackout and everything and how it was, rigged and whatever. I'm so glad that none of that had to happen. And in that kind of period, Borges and Becker stepped up. And who else but the 2 best Canadian CPL players?
Exactly.
Courtesy of, our coast to coast. Once again proved themselves great. And 2 really well taken goals from Forge, from Borges, and from Becker. It kind of proves that you don't need to be the best team across the full 90 minutes as long as you do it when it matters. And that's one thing that Forge very, very often do well is they turn it up when they need to. They turn it up when the opportunity is there. And when they have that opportunity, they take it. And that's what they did. And they did it twice. Borges' goal, very nice finish into the bottom corner. And what a volley from Kyle Becker.
Oh, it's drilled it, didn't he?
Which was the eventual winner because Owusu did get the consolation goal. But, I mean, for it to be Becker and Borges, that's exactly what you're looking for in the players to step up. And who else but those 2?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what, 3 minutes space and gone from 1-0 down to 2-1 up. And yeah, there's that great goal from Borges for that Becker one was absolutely brilliant to see because you can see him sort of drift out of the picture as the camera pans going up to the other end of the pitch, and then all of a sudden he just comes popping up with that late run to get on the at the end of the ball that's been laid out to that Masunda gets out the way of and just arrives just perfectly in time to smash it in the back of the net. Was great moment for Forge, and they're so good at managing games, like you said, like as well. This is they ensured they had that opportunity that right when we need to go out we can do it. We're not like they knew what they had a game plan, and they're the best at it in the CPL.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why they are probably one of the only teams that can pull out a result like that against an MLS side being 1-0 down, turning it around 2-1. And then, being able to see it out. And they'll be a little bit frustrated with the late consolation, but I mean, they went through. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And now they have a semifinal date with the Vancouver Whitecaps FC. And it causes a bit of dilemma for my poor heart as my former employers go up against my current employers. And I have to kind of deal with a very, very conflicting matchup in August and in September. But speaking of the Whitecaps, let's talk about their victory against Valour FC. They won 2-1 on the night. And I think a lot of credit has to be given to Valour FC in this match. I know a lot of people going into the match that maybe don't watch CPL as much as I do or we do. We're thinking that it was going to be a bit of a cakewalk. We were at home looking at the lineup. It was quite a strong lineup. We had got Brian White back from international duty from Gold Cup. Sebastian Berhalter as well on the bench. You had Jaden Nelson. You had Priso. You had Pedro Vite. It looked like a good strong lineup. And so I remember there were some people there that kind of felt like it was going to be 2, maybe 3, maybe 4-0. But relatively a straightforward victory. credit to Valour, because it was not a straightforward victory by any means. They were really, really well structured. They knew that they weren't going to be able to hold much possession. So they were just defending deep, waiting for the opportunities. And yes, when they did come in open play, they weren't fantastic. They had maybe one or two decent chances. I remember Raphael Ohen had like a dangerous cross went in that Bomer had to go and like put a palm to. Jordan Faria had a chance. I think, I don't know if it was off that one or a different one, where he should have shot early and he didn't, and he lost the opportunity. But it did feel like, even though Valour didn't look anywhere close to scoring, they kept the Whitecaps at bay. They kept the chances from the Whitecaps to a minimum. Only Brian White had a kind of a flash chance that with a shot going over. But aside from that, I remember writing the match report for it and not really having much to write about, because it was all, just an intense defensive display from Valour, just trying to choke out the Whitecaps' attack. And they did really well. And they did it for 80 minutes, which is a tough task at BC Place against, one of the best teams in MLS. Provided, you look at the context as well, you look how poor of a season they're having, and how, they struggle to stay focused and to stay, clued in and locked in, especially defensively. And it like those 80 minutes is easily, for me, the best display that I've seen from Valour all season. And obviously, from a certain perspective, heartbreaking for them that they were unable to, see it out for a penalty shootout and try the lottery that is penalties. But it's still, I think, from what I saw from Phil Dos Santos afterwards in the press conference, he can be nothing but proud of what his team's efforts.
Definitely. I mean, the amount of times they've lost concentration at key moments and throughout this season, and they've just made silly mistakes to then come up against Vancouver, who are like the Whitecaps, who are absolutely top side, like you say, filled with great first team players. This wasn't a big switch around. So, to do that was incredible. Like defensively, if they can mimic anything similar to this in the next few matches, it puts them in so much of a better position, because they'll get a few more chances in CPL games than they did in this one. And if they can start trying to make themselves a little bit harder to beat, gives them something more to work on throughout the season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing for Valour is, are you able to sort of translate this to the rest of the season? Because there's a lot of positives from it. I mean, 80th minute, Emmanuel Sabi scores a really, really good goal. The ball kind of just slips through the back line, hits it first time. Nothing really you can do about it. Just kind of a moment of brilliance. But then to be able to respond, 6 minutes later, off a set piece, Javante Lane.
Just about Javante Lane. I was watching it back because it's like he goes up for a header, but he's not really in line to win the header, but it bounces off someone else and then bounces into him and somehow goes in the goal.
It goes in.
You get what you get what you give, and you'll take it.
And you know what? If Valour were going to score a goal on that night, it was going to be a goal like that. Just a little bit chaotic, a little bundly, but it just crosses the net. And that's exactly what happened. And the celebrations from Valour in the wake of that goal were amazing. You even saw Phil Dos Santos running around with his arms outstretched. It was, it was fantastic for them.
Yeah.
And it really felt like, oh God, they might actually do it. They might actually bring it to penalties. And then in penalties, they have as much right as anybody else to go through. But heartbreak for them once again.
Yeah.
In the 90th minute or 91st minute, because Bjorn Inge Utvik, who, by the way, seems to love the Canadian Championship, because last year it was his penalty that won the Canadian Championship for the Whitecaps against Toronto. And then now this year he scores his first ever goal for the Whitecaps in this match against Valour to send them through to the semifinal. So it seems like this is, he loves this competition. He loves to step up in this competition and had a really good header.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you can really blame Hamaras on it. Maybe he kind of dived a little bit too early, but still, it was just a really well placed header.
Yeah, right in the corner. It's a sucker punch from Valour, but yeah, very hard to take, because it wasn't like other games where you just see them lose concentration and concede a silly goal. I think it's just really well taken.
Yeah, exactly. But like I mentioned, really strong performance from Valour. Kind of a similar situation to Vancouver, where you're kind of asking, where was this in the previous 13 match days?
Yeah.
But I guess, like you mentioned, when it's cup football, when it's, winning you're in kind of situation where there's not really much kind of long-term thinking, that's where you get these kinds of scenarios, and that's where you get these kinds of performances from normally weaker teams in the competition. But yeah, I think for Phil, like, there, even though that's the situation, that's the context, there's still a lot of things that you can take from it to be able to build on, in the season. And we're not even halfway through the season yet. They are quite adrift from fifth place, but based on this performance, and I'll even throw Vancouver FC with their win against Cavalry, do you see either of these two sides having a chance at playoffs if they can kind of relive some of these moments that they've had in the CANCHAMP?
It's going to be highly. They've given themselves quite the mountain to climb, especially as York continue to get better, and they're scoring goals, whereas the others aren't scoring as frequently. It's going to be who knows if they can get some of it out. You're relying on other teams having quite a big wobble rather than a little wobble now, which is the only tough bit. But if they can if they can push it and close that gap, at least it puts you in a better position going forward for next year, I think.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, when you're so far off, even if you don't make the playoffs, as long as you improve in your performances, at least that's something that you can kind of take away from the season, though you might be clutching at straws. But now, kind of before we wrap up, I wanted to kind of ask you off the cuff here, looking at the semifinals, we have Vancouver FC against Atletico Ottawa, and we have the Whitecaps against Forge FC. Do you anticipate any potential upsets in the semifinal? Because obviously Whitecaps will be the favorite to go to the final, and Ottawa will be the favorites to meet them there. Do you think there's going to be any chances of some upsets in either of those ties?
Could well be. I think it's difficult for Forge. They're going up against you're not one MLS team out, and they get the next one that's got a lot more confidence about how they play. But they'll see what Valour did. They'll watch that back about how they frustrated them, and then they'll look at the different ways. They've got much better players going forward, for players in form going forward as well. So they'll look at how they can maybe exploit the Whitecaps a little bit better than Valour could. So there's the potential there. The Ottawa one, I think it's going to be a strange one, because I think sometimes, like we see, Vancouver are a slightly different team in the cup games, and if they can get players fit, ensure that they've got the players they want are available to them to do that, then you never know. Like, they seem to have, like, they go to Forge and they're a better team. So going away from home, who knows what they could do? It'll be, hopefully, in some ways, it'll be. I mean, obviously, hopefully, we get an all CPL final, but to get a little upset somewhere would be quite nice as well.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact
Vancouver in the final against
like,
Vancouver.
could you imagine an all Vancouver final? I would love that. I would love that. I'll be honest. I was quite disappointed that we didn't get an all Vancouver semifinal, because that would have meant that finally the Whitecaps would have to visit Langley and Willoughby Stadium, which I've always wanted to see happen. Fortunately, not the case this year. Going to have to wait next year to see if it finally happens. But like you mentioned, it might be an all Vancouver final. It would be at BC Place, but still for Vancouver FC, that would be massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully a little upset happens. Maybe actually, I don't know. I can't even say not against the Whitecaps because it is Forge. I really am in a pickle for that one in terms of what I want to end up. But for Vancouver FC, that could be huge for them. But just the fact that we are guaranteed, a CPL team in the final. This is the first time that we've ever had a CPL team in the final that have gone through the full tournament format. We obviously had that weird COVID makeup one where we had Forge against, I think it was Toronto in the final. But this is the first one where we actually have, a CPL team on sort of merit in the competition, making it to the final. So it's already a massive step forward for the CPL. But yeah, you never know what might happen at the end of the day, whether it's an all CPL final or whether, Whitecaps face a CPL team, and maybe on that given day, the CPL team might fancy their chances. That's the beauty of COP football, is that everything else kind of goes out the window. So we'll be very much looking forward to the next, 2 rounds. Unfortunately, another huge gap in between the 2 matches. August and September, but when those come around, we'll be sure to inform you guys and chat to you guys about everything that went on.
Definitely.
But until then, that's all for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow us once again on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC, so you can give us your thoughts on the episode and on the Canadian Championship ties, and let us know if you think there are going to be any upsets in the future in these semi-final ties. But until then, I'm Felipe Vallejo.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And this has been Coast to Coast FC, signing up.